Hi, and welcome to the Angry Therapist podcast. I'm saying this for anyone watching on YouTube, and yes, I have a YouTube channel. Everyone seems to have a YouTube channel these days. It just, podcasts and YouTube seem to be the peanut butter and chocolate of media these days. And so, yes, I have a YouTube channel. So if you want to see my face, which is usually sweaty or it's wet either way. So it's either sweat or it's water from a hose because because when I sit down and podcast, it's usually the afternoon, and I take a hose to my face. I think part of it is just it's nostalgia. It's what we used to do in the '80s, and I think I do it because I want to go back to the '80s. Speaking of the '80s, I was talking to my own therapist, and I had a session last week, and I always think about the '80s as being this magical time because the '80s was my wonder years and the world was big and I was rocking fat laces. When Adidas's were new, pretty much, and windbreakers. I had a little pompadour with Aquanet hairspray. I think that's banned now because it's like super glue. And I was spinning on my back, and I was losing myself in breakdancing. And so like these memories of me hitting flow states, spinning on my back, being a part of a breakdancing crew, early Madonna and Run DMC. Uh, I don't know. I think about those times and they feel so magical. But I was processing with my therapist is actually when I really reflect, I was actually a lonely kid. I was a 12-year-old loner who I think found activities like breakdancing and BMX bikes um, Transformers, Legos, to numb my loneliness. And it made me sad. It was the first time that I thought about the '80s in a way where they weren't happy times, but they were very lonely times. Anyway, I'm not trying to bring you down, but I guess the revelation is sometimes we see things in a way uh, because we are playing back um, times through the same lens, right? So, like for example, in my case, the '80s and music, nostalgia, breakdancing, um, and we don't go back and look at that time period through a different lens. And when we do, we realize that maybe what we're playing back isn't accurate. And I'm saying this because I think a lot of times we do this in our relationships with our exes, playing back old relationships, and either they were amazing and we're playing back, or what we think they were amazing and we're playing back moments or events through the same lens, which gives us the same feeling and dopamine, and it's not nostalgia and love and whatever, right? And sometimes if you go back to the same memories and you put on new lenses or you try to see it from a different angle, or you see it from a different version of you, right? Because that memory is usually from the version of you at that age. So let's say you replay the memory as the age you are today, or even like 3 years ago, or maybe like you're playing back that memory from the future version of you. I know it sounds a little abstract. You will see or notice that the feelings are different, and you will start to see things that you didn't and feel things that you didn't. And I think it's more of an accurate representation to do that. So you're getting a 360 view of the past instead of playing the same broken record, if that makes sense. It's like you're listening to not the one hit wonder, right? But you're listening to all the songs on the record, the shitty songs, the songs that never got big. You're listening to the entire album. And I think the way to do that is to play back memories from a different version of you or through a new lens. Okay, today I'm going to answer two questions. They're questions I get often, actually. One is, how do you know you've done enough healing to be in a relationship? And the next question is, how can I accept that my partner and I may not be for one another? These are really big questions. What I mean by big is they're very common. I get versions of these two questions often, which is why I'm going to answer them on today's episode. So the first one, how do you know you're done healing, or you've done enough healing to be in a relationship? So I want to just remind you that because I think there's misconceptions about healing, this idea of healing. It's not a one-time thing. So when I think about healing, because you're not only healing your own personal wounds, but there's also the repair from the rupture of the relationship, right? You're also continuously healing wounds of the relationship, and they don't have to be, huge wounds. It could be the fight you had last week that wasn't that big of a deal, or it could be a huge conflict that hasn't been resolved, or it could be infidelity. It could be, big things where people really hurt each other. It could be betrayal. So those are obviously wounds of the relationship, but it could also just be like the disagreement the other day on what you guys wanted for dinner and how that turned into a little bit of a fight and some hurt feelings. And of course, it's never about what's on the surface, right? It was never about what people wanted for dinner. There was stuff happening underneath. But my point is that healing is an ongoing thing. You don't completely heal and you're done, and then you choose to love someone, or in the relationship you heal and you're done, and it's like the grass is now green and perfectly manicured. I don't know why I used that analogy. I don't know if that makes sense. But relationships are always in a state of repair, ruptures, healing, repair, ruptures, healing. Like there's a cycle. Um, what I think is the miracle of love and relationships is that you could actually heal through your relationship. You know, and so I want to talk about healing and when you're ready to actually be in a relationship or invest in someone. Um, I don't know if you're ever ready. It's like having children where you want children. Um, you do everything you can to kind of prep for that, and then you just have children, and then you find your way. And I don't think it doesn't matter how many books you read about parenting or how many conversations you have with other parents, and you can kind of get an idea, but you'll never know what it's like to be a parent until you're actually in it, right? And I think that relationships are the same. I mean, I think you're not ready if you're not working on building a life for yourself, right? I don't think you're ready if you're always dependent on someone else to make you happy. I don't think you're ready if you're active in any kind of addiction. Um, but if you're functioning and you bring something to the table, so not just your heart, but your story, an acceptance of your story, and a willingness to look inward and grow and evolve, um, that's the ante to sit at the table of love and start sharing your life with someone. I don't think there's like this these boxes to check and then boom, the green light's on. You're now ready to love someone. I don't know if we're ever ready, quote unquote ready. So, yeah, that's my answer as far as am I ready to be in a relationship? Unless you're not functioning, unless you're in denial of the consequences of your addictions, unless you are not in a good place mentally, if you're clinically depressed, like, unless you like, you're not functioning in just in life. If you're not up and running, then yeah, I don't think you're ready to then share your life with someone else. Um, because what will happen is you'll probably end up taking someone hostage, if that makes sense, right? But if you're doing okay and you have a pretty good sense of self and you have some sense of purpose, um, and you don't have to have the answers to all of these, right? You don't have to rate an A plus on all of these categories, but if the ball is rolling and you're able to find some joy and you have a heart and a story and you want to share your life with someone and invest in something, then yes, you're ready. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's my answer. And as far as the healing part goes, um, we're always on a journey of healing, and I think that every relationship, even friendships, and especially our relationships with our family, they activate the shit out of us, right? And this activation is the mirror. It's the black light. It's what's going to tell you what needs to be healed. It's the beauty and the miracle of relationships, but it's also, I think, what's difficult about relationships. And if you don't lean into, if you're not curious about what is coming up for you because you are loving someone because of this collision, this human exchange, this vulnerability, right? If you don't actually work through that and look at it, then what a waste! What a waste of a miracle that could happen. What a waste of you possibly healing through your relationship. So um, that is what they call, quote unquote, the work is processing, looking at, working through the activation that comes up when you choose to love someone, when you choose to share yourself, when you choose to be vulnerable. Now, if you don't, and I got to say, many people don't, because it's uncomfortable, or because they're not used to it, or they're not ready for that, then you kind of that growth soil calcifies, and you kind of lose that opportunity to grow. And then I think you'll find yourself in a lot of the same relationships where the faces change, but it's the same type of relationship. I think you'll find yourself in a lot of short-lived relationships. I think you'll find yourself in uh, maybe powerful collisions and lots of chemicals and dopamine and but I don't think you're going to hit the kind of like high notes that you can in love if you're not looking at all the things that come up from the relationship. So the good, bad, and the ugly. I would say because the good, bad, and ugly makes it sound like there's only one good and two bad, and that's not true. There should be like the good, the great, maybe another good thing, and then the bad and bad and the ugly. Anyway, all right. Question number two: how can I accept that my partner and I may not be right for one another? This is another one of those questions where I think it requires a little redefining. First of all, this idea of being right for each other, I got to say, at 51, and I'm currently in a 6-year partnership. And before this, there was a 3-year relationship. Before that, another 3-year relationship. Um, I think I had one more relationship and then a 5-year marriage. I've been in many relationships, and I feel like this idea of are we right for each other, it's like loaded. It's too simple because well, like I don't think love is that simple, you know. And I know there's times that love is simple. It doesn't have to be overly complicated, but you being right for someone, I mean, depending on where you're at in your life, and can you feel that you're right for someone today, and then as people grow and change, a year from now, you may not feel that you're right for this person. So then, what do you do? Bounce? I don't know. I feel like that terminology is kind of a trap, right? So, what would be the reframe? What would be the reframe if this idea of am I right for someone is is kind of loaded and overly simplified? Because if you say that, because what it does is it says that I'm either right for this person or I'm not, and by saying that, you may leave when things get hard too soon. By saying that, or you may um, stay in something that maybe you shouldn't, that is not honest to you or healthy, right? So um, being right for someone is going to vary depending on your definition of right. When that depends on where you're at in your life. I would say, is this relationship um, promoting my growth? Are we generally in alignment? Um, is this relationship good for me? There are other questions to ask instead of, is this person right for me? Am I challenged in this relationship in a good way? Do I feel safe in this relationship? Is this relationship a corrective experience that's going to eclipse past experiences? Generally speaking, is this relationship healing this container? I like those kind of questions. This whole idea of is something right or wrong, way too simple. So I would dig deeper, ask yourself different questions, stay away from things that are just super binary. I get it. At the end of the day, love is a choice. So there is that part of love that is binary. I do believe you either choose to love someone or you don't. Every day it's a daily choice, right? And some days it's difficult, some days it's easy or easier. Um, that I do believe in, but I think that's the only piece of love that's kind of binary. The rest is multi-layered and a bit abstract and requires processing. You know, it's also, I feel like love is cumulative. So when you say, is this person right for me? I don't know. I mean, I think it's, you have to take a step back and you have to ask yourself, um, overall, is this person um, slash relationship good for me? What I want, creating growth, a catalyst to my evolution. Uh, are we building something that is greater than both of us? Anyway, sometimes I feel bad because I feel like the way that I speak, it's it's a little out there, and people want answers. And after hearing my podcast, they end up having more questions, which actually is good, right? Because fuck, who am I to give you answers? I don't know. I'm struggling too, but I have a lot of questions for you, and I think the stretch is in um, asking yourself more questions instead of seeking answers. Anyway, thank you for listening slash watching, and appreciate you following my story. Um, if you have time for a review, or if you want to hit a few stars on my iTunes or wherever podcast, whatever platform you're listening on, that would mean the world. Thank you for listening. Be well.